Are you all getting some?
Afterwards, Swamiji.
Afterwards.
Everybody will get.
I hope so.
Yes.
They say people shouldn't drink alone. I don't like to eat alone. So let me ask you, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Any questions?
আপনি গান করুন সেই গান মনে আছে তো গুরু ব্রহ্মা গুরু বিষ্ণু
Ek gan. Okay.
এমন দিন কি হবে মাতারা
She said, "Ekon din ki habe matara."
Oh yeah, sure. Emon din ki hobe matara, emon din ki hobe matara, jobe tara tara, tara bole, tara beye porbe dara, emon din ki hobe matara, te jibo shobheda bhed, de Mone Radhar jabe tute. I don't remember. Maaf korun. Ami bhule geyechi. Thank you. Now, another thing my mother taught me was not to eat with my mouth full. And here I'm not to talk with my mouth full. Singhara.
Would you like some music, Swamiji?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a request, Swamiji?
Go on alone.
Okay. Go on along.
This is from Tagore's Akla Cholo. I based it on that.
Yeah, get in the back. Can you guys move in the back?
Walk like a man, even though you walk alone. Why court approval once the road is known? Let come who will, but if they all turn home, the ghost still awaits you. Go on alone.
Follow your dream, going into worlds unknown. Life's but a shadow, once our dreams have flown. What if and why your dream is not our own? Your soul knows the answer. Go on alone.
Give life your heart, bless everything that's grown. Fear not the loving, all this world's your own. Make rich the soul, but once the seed is sown, seek freedom, don't linger. Go on alone.
Please join us.
Walk like
A man, even though you walk alone, find court approval once the road is known. Let come who will, but if they all turn home, the ghost still awaits you. Go on alone. Go on alone. Go on alone. Thank you. You know, in our society, we are so much influenced by other people's opinions, other people's desires. We're not free. People think they're free because I know what I want. What makes them want it? That's where they become unfree. You know, the first time I was in Punjab, somebody took me to Patiala, and there was a Brigu Sangita there. Somebody Brigu lived 5,000 years ago. How could you know about my little life? Because in Treta Yuga, they knew the future. They demolished the delusion of time. As in this Dwapara Yuga, they will demolish the delusion of space. They'll be able to go to distant planets and so on. But it's really amazing to realize how little we are actually free. We think we have our own thoughts. We don't. Your thoughts reflect the level of consciousness on which you live. And Master in Autobiography of a Yogi says thoughts are universally rooted, not individually. I remember when I was about 23, I fell into a sudden mood, and I tried to get out of it by every means possible. I couldn't reason my way out of it. So then I changed my level of consciousness by concentrating here. Suddenly my mood changed. It depends on the level of consciousness where you are, and then you attract thoughts to you from that level. But you are not free. The only freedom you have, and remember this, you can turn toward God or away from God. You can turn toward God or toward Satan or Maya. And the moment you take one step, then that influence begins to come. So if you want God, you don't have to do all the work yourself. Just turn toward Him, keep thinking of Him, and His influence will gradually draw you more and more until you become one with Him. But if you think thoughts of Maya, then Satan will attract you. Some people think, oh, it's all in the mind, it doesn't matter. That's exactly where it is, and that's exactly why it does matter. What's in the mind is your reality. And if you turn toward anything to do with Maya, that influence will take you further and further. How far can you go either direction? You can go toward God and become one with Him. God is not a separate being from us. He made us. He didn't make us as a carpenter would make a table. He manifested us out of His own consciousness. We are God. But we have to realize it. That is the problem. That's why we're on the spiritual path. But remember that the more you offer yourself to God, the more you will attract that consciousness, that grace. You don't have to plead with God to give you His grace. Every time you're kind to somebody, He's expressing His grace through you. Every time you show compassion, you attract more grace. So the more you turn that way, but how far can you go in the other way? You don't have to remain a human being. You may be a cow mooing in some field next life if you don't live in a good way. If you become an animal, from a human level you'll only be one lifetime. Then you come back to the human level. But if you want to go on living like an animal, you can be thrown down many lifetimes. My guru said you can go as low as the level of a germ. And then you have to work your way all the way up again. It's a scary thought. Why not turn toward God? Master said it took very good karma to be a human being. Why not make the best use of it? Love Him in your heart. You will find that the more you turn toward Him, the more His attraction will come. So that is why we're on the spiritual path. Not to ask for His grace. You've got His grace. Just be worthy of it. Do you have any questions? Everywhere else, people have millions of questions. But I enjoy answering questions too, because it gives me an idea of where to go with my talking.
So, yeah, I have a question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So many animals are evolving to become human beings. So why the population, I mean, how population is correlated to animal kingdom?
So many animals are evolving to become human beings, so why does the population not increase?
Well, it is increasing, I would think.
It's increasing. I mean, abnormally it's increasing.
Listen, do you think we're the only planet on this in this universe with people on it? There are thousands of planets. You know, one very interesting, thousands, billions of planets. There are 100 billion galaxies, and in all those galaxies there are suns, and in all those suns, not all those suns, but many of them, there are people. So you aren't only on this planet. You could be in many other planets. I asked my guru one time, the people who are coming now on this planet, will they be here in Satya Yuga? He said, oh no, there are plenty of other planets to go to. You go where your nature attracts you, and if you aren't living a sattvic life, you can be. There are whole galaxies that are tamasic, whole galaxies that are rajasic, whole galaxies are sattvic. Our galaxy is rajasic, but the people in tamasic planets, they have cannibalism and ferocious tigers and all sorts of things there. And when they fall, they can fall lower than people. And the epidemics that we have in this world are often souls from those planets. And they're reborn here to get the punishment that they deserve for having been so bad. But you're way ahead of that. Become complete. The number of people on this planet is absolutely meaningless. There could be billions more, but I hope there won't. And in fact, in the time ahead of us, we're coming to a very great depression. And in that depression there will be, you'd better turn off your phones, eh? In that depression there will be a great war, great wars. Russia, Germany, China, they will have a great war. India, with Pakistan next door, itching to do something, China backing Pakistan, it's not a safe situation even now. And in my lifetime, no, but in the lifetime of some of the young people maybe, there will be atomic wars. It'll wipe out most of the planet. And then Master said, there will be 300 years of peace. People will be so tired of fighting. But also they won't have that many people to fight. So Calcutta won't be a crowded little village the way it is now. Any other questions?
Swamiji, why isn't the world cured of all? Like, if we could come to this path, there
What's
are
that
other
again?
friends. If we can come to this path, there are others like us who are in similar paths, on similar paths. Then why
You know, there are many paths to God. So this is one mistake that people make. Ours is the best. Our guru is the best. No, they all come from God. And don't make comparisons. I know the Ramakrishna disciples, not his direct disciples, but further ones, used to say to Yogananda, he's a very good cook. Unnecessary to talk like that. Yes, he was a good cook. He was also a great master. But you see this everywhere. People try to compare. If you want to compare yourself with saints. Think, how can I become more sattvic? How can I become more humble? Humble doesn't mean self-abasing. Humble means self-forgetting. forgetful, to realize that you yourself are not significant. The most important thing on the spiritual path is to overcome this sense of ego. And what surprised me about this is that Bengalis love to talk. And now nobody's asking me questions. There was one gentleman in Calcutta who said to a young man, "You know, my boy, are you married?" "What do you mean, am I married? I'm married to your own daughter." "Oh, I know, I just wanted something to say and I couldn't think of anything else." So, anyway,
Okay.
Oh, you can leave it here. I'll get to it sooner or later.
I'm happy.
Yes, you had a question back there?
Yeah. Now that you have come here and meeting all of the people in here, and how the people in Calcutta can make themselves happier, what is the way to get?
I'm deaf as a post, so you'll have to.
How can people in Calcutta make themselves happier?
Why Calcutta? Everywhere.
Yeah, that you have come here.
You know, we have all we're manifestations of God. We can say that God is us. We can't say we are God because we're not infinite. But He became us. We're a part of His dream. And we have to wake up from that dream. Now, God's nature is Satchit Ananda, ever existing, ever conscious, and Yogananda added the term ever new bliss. That bliss is always fresh, always new. And the only thing we want in life, everybody in the world, we're not Calcutta, everywhere, they all want happiness. They all want bliss, but they don't know it. And so they want happiness. And some people define happiness in different ways according to their nature. So that people who are tamasic in nature, they may want happiness in the sense of revenge. I got even with him, ha ha ha. But they still want the same thing. They just don't understand. Well, if people can understand that, then they can go toward a finer and finer refinement of that happiness. But I had a dream in Florence, Italy, many years ago, in which I saw crowds of people, some evil, some good, some mediocre, business types, criminal types, all of them passing me. And I saw one thing they had in common. They all wanted the same thing I want. They all wanted happiness. And that was my reason for loving everybody. And so I really feel that love for everybody. I think the more you can forget yourself, the more happy you are. The more you can forget yourself in serving other people and helping other people, the more happy you are. Jesus Christ said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." If you give to people, your consciousness expands. And to receive, and if you take from people, it contracts. The whole trouble today is that people are greedy. They want more and more. And that is why there will come this Great Depression. They have to learn that lesson. Countries are grabbing from each other, people are grabbing from each other, businesses are grabbing, and even I remember I saw some beggars in Delhi, and I stopped to ask a beggar how to get somewhere. He was angry. How did I dare ask from him? He was supposed to ask from me. Well, that's very bad karma. He'll go probably to an animal level next time. But when you give to other people, when you help other people, when you give happiness to people, there are different things that you can give people. You can give them food, but food they'll digest and be hungry again at the next meal time. You can give them jobs. Well, that's okay, but they're not secure in that job. You may lose it. If you can give people happiness, that's the greatest gift you can give. If you can give them God. So whenever you see anybody, just try to feel that you're blessing him. And in that you will feel greater and greater happiness in yourself. The less you live for yourself, don't think of your own importance. In fact, it will help you very much if people insult you to say thank you. You don't have to answer them. You don't have to fight back. You will find more and more bliss the more you share your unhappiness with others. Okay? Is somebody getting in? Yes.
You've written about faith being your armor. You've written about faith being your armor. Could you please tell us a little about how faith can be an armor?
What did you say?
She said your vision about faith being your armor. Can you tell us how faith can be your armor?
When you have faith in God, you know, this is something I should mention to you too, that Master said those who love God will be protected. There's a very interesting story I read not many years ago. You know, when America dropped those 2 bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, there were 2 places near the center of where those bombs fell. They were religious societies, and they were untouched. That's you'd have to call that God seems like a miracle. But you will find that if you love God, you will be protected. Faith is putting all your energy in that direction. That's also a beginning of love. And the more you put yourself in His hands, the more He will protect you. I have seen that. In fact, Asha, where is Asha? Asha has just written a book, Loved and Protected, is that the name? Yes. It's about miracles that ordinary individuals have had by faith in God. You will see again and again, I remember one time, I came here to Calcutta many years ago, 1972.
Yes.
There was a man named Mishra. He was from Bhubaneswar. And I had wanted to see him. He was a friend of mine he was in school in college in America, and I'd made friends with him, but I didn't know his address. And I was sorry that I was coming all the way to Calcutta and wouldn't be able to at least to go down and say hi to him or something. And so when my plane landed in Calcutta, the people who were there to meet me at Dum Dum weren't there because the traffic was heavy and they were late. So instead of doing the thing people usually do, is run to the telephone, try to find out what the matter is and so on, I just stood there and said, Divine Mother, what do you want? And straight at that moment, a man stopped in front of me. He said, what is your good name? And I told him. He said, I thought you were he. I've seen your photograph in an album of photographs of a friend of mine, Dr. Mishra. And I said, I've been wanting to see this Dr. Mishra. He said, he's here in Calcutta. I've come to see him, and I'll take you to his home. So, you see, really, I've had many experiences like that, and it can happen to everybody. I'm nobody special or different from you. We're all children of the same God. And if you have that faith, you will find that in extraordinary ways He will take care of you. Yes.
Swamiji, I have a question. When you are in pain, deep pain, because of passing away of your family member, maybe, so how do you really overcome that?
When you're in deep pain, say from a parting of your family members, how do you welcome that?
Well, you don't easily, and nor do you do it quickly. But if you face your faith in God, you will find that in the end, it was the best thing that could have happened to you. You know, I'm a disciple of Yogananda. He founded an organization. I was active in that organization for 14 years. I was very dedicated. I thought that serving this organization would be serving him. And I was too creative for the people above me. And one day, they called me back. The last stop in India was Calcutta. They called me to New York, not Los Angeles, New York. I thought, why New York? In New York, they told me I was out of the organization. They didn't want anything more to do with me, simply because I was creative. I hadn't been betraying him, but they didn't like it. Well, that to me was a terrible thing. Worse than that, they were the people I looked up to and admired. And suddenly, overnight, I was thrown out into New York streets they just take any job that comes along. They gave me nothing. That's a hard experience to go through. Took me many years. But I came to understand that it was the best possible thing for me. Master told me, you have a great work to do. And I couldn't do it under them. They would always say, no, 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 no. When I was on my own, I could start writing books, I could start giving classes, I could create communities. Everything I have done in my life began with their throwing me out. The best thing that could have happened. And you will see that if you live for God, everything that comes will be good karma. It may be painful, but it will be good karma. Okay? I've seen that with other kinds of pain too, because we live in a world of duality. Everything is up and down. Nothing lasts forever. You finally get to the top of the ladder and become a successful president, and the next day something happens. Maybe you get cancer, maybe your wife dies, who knows what. But always, everything is up and down. The only safe place you can be is in God, beyond Dvaita, beyond duality. In Him there is just nothing but peace and bliss. But in this world, whatever up you have, you're going to have to experience an opposite. So, I remember, be even-minded. I remember one time I got a severe kidney stone attack, trying to pass through my channel to my bladder. And it was so severe, my whole body was shaking like a leaf. And I said, Divine Mother, I refuse to pray for myself. And so for 2 hours I was sitting there just shaking. Then I remembered that I had a service to give. And in 15 minutes I was supposed to give the service. So I said, Divine Mother, you can do what you like, but if you want to want me to give the service, then you're going to have to take this pain away. Just like that, it went away. So by praying to God, everything will be fine. And putting yourself in His hands, the greatest pain, physical or mental, I try to be even-minded always. When I go to the dentist, I don't take any painkiller. And sometimes the dentist is perspiring with sympathetic pain, but I don't feel it. I just compose music or think about some point of philosophy. One time the pain was very intense, so I just felt that my reality was not just this little body, it was much larger. And then what happened to the little body didn't matter. But you can rise above everything if you just firmly tell yourself, I am not this body. I am He. Any other questions?
Swamiji, I have a question.
Yeah.
Swamiji, why does God give us the challenge to live encountering such difficult pains?
You know, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, get away from my ocean of suffering and misery. And you would think that everybody would think that, yeah, let me get out of this suffering and misery. But with every bit of suffering, there's also pleasure. And people decide that when the suffering goes, it's worth it. And so that let me have my little wife and children and money and pleasures and all that. And they go on and on. But there's always some reason to hang on. But if it weren't for the suffering, nobody would seek God. I remember I was at the lake shrine, a property of SRF's, and it's a beautiful property, but there were little gnats that get in your eyes and ears and nose, and I said to Master, sort of with a smile, why with all this beauty does it have to be spoiled by these pests? And he said, that's just God's way of keeping us moving toward Him. So don't worry. Just always, whenever you feel pain, all right, God, I'll remember you all the more. The pain is when you remember God more. Remembering Him, don't turn back from Him. But I don't think if anybody, I had a dream one time, I was being burned at the stake. And I thought, what does it matter? I'll leave this body after a little while and then I'll be free. And my torturers were sitting at a banquet table. This is how dreams are. And they were feasting and laughing and having a good time. And I just thought, well, this is fun. Then friends of mine came and rescued me. And I was just as indifferent when they rescued me as when they put me to the stake. If you can be indifferent to this world, not be attached to the ups and downs, not be like those television personalities that leap up and down because they've got some new soft drink or something. They say that have a Coca-Cola will give you happiness. Well, in fact, it makes you depressed. But they don't show that in the ads. I remember one time I saw a movie of the Song of Bernadette. It's a saint's. It's a movie about a saint, but it was on television, and there was this vision of the Virgin Mary and beautiful music and everything. Suddenly, cut Coca-Cola. It seemed utterly blasphemous. But anyway, be grateful for the pains because they keep you moving toward God. And I am. I've had my share. I had my hips operated on 3 times. You know, he said it was the worst case he'd ever seen. He said you should have been bedridden years ago. And when I was walking, people would try to talk to me. I would say, I can't answer you. I'm just, every ounce of my willpower is devoted to putting my foot, one foot in front of the other. And I didn't want to bother with a hip operation, but after a while it came convenient to have one, so I had one. And 3 times he had to replace that much of my hip bone. It had ground away on the bone on bone that long. I just don't think about such things. Why bother? I had open heart surgery. Of course, that didn't hurt. They took this much out of my intestines, and they've had, my body has been a battleground. It just doesn't matter to me. They talk of the suffering that Jesus experienced. He didn't suffer. He was above suffering. And this is how we should be. Your ego is what suffers. When you don't think of your body and your ego and don't think myself is suffering, you won't suffer. Really. I know it. Okay?
New dimension from 3rd dimension to 4th dimension. It is a lot of talks are there from now from 2013 onwards.
What is he saying?
Couldn't quite hear. Did you hear?
Yeah. Is Earth?
Say louder, please.
Is Earth is changing its consciousness from 3rd dimension to 4th dimensions from this onwards. And it will go on. It will get established in after 16 years.
The Earth is changing its dimensions from third to fourth, and will it keep changing like this?
The Earth is changing its dimensions from 3rd to 4th dimension, and will it keep changing like this?
I don't know what you're talking about. There are 3 dimensions in this world. Up, this way, and I don't know. 4th dimension is beyond this world. 5th dimension, I don't know what it is. Really, I'm not a physicist. I don't know anything about this. So thank you for asking a question I couldn't answer. Any others?
Swamiji, how are you feeling after visiting Kolkata after such a long time? How are you feeling today?
I love it. Yeah, I love Calcutta. Yeah. The one thing I especially love about Bengal is that there's a lot of heart quality here. I know I was 32 when I first came here. And that's a few years ago. Not quite yesterday. And Dr. Dash was on our board of directors. He lectured me for 1 hour on how much I ought to know before I could presume to speak to these sophisticated Bengalis. I don't like sophistication. I like being a child. I like being not ignorant, but open to everything. I used to be very intellectual, but it didn't give me happiness. And so I'm happy as I am. I don't like that aspect of Bengal. I like the heart quality. I like the language. The language is the sweetest language in the world. I've never heard a more sweet. And I like the kindness. So be kind. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for coming. God bless you. I can't hear. Okay.
My puja is weak, so I'm
okay, I understand. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay,
yeah. Any other questions?
Swamiji, could you describe your first impression when you met Yogananda ji?
You know,
and how do you remember him?
It will seem strange to you. I read his autobiography. I'd been seeking truth all my life. I used to try to seek it without God. And I thought I'd find it in astronomy, I'd find it in politics and the arts, and I wanted to be a poet and a writer. And nothing gave me what I wanted. And I remember I was learning playwriting, and I was in Charleston, South Carolina. And I thought, what's the use of writing plays if all I have to share with people is my ignorance? And I decided I have to know if there is a God. If there is a God, what is He? The God that I learned about in church did not touch my heart. And I went out in a long walk, and I said, if there's a God, what must He be? And finally I decided I'm consciously asking this question. That means He must be consciousness. And my job in life has to be to know Him. And I began to worry, am I going crazy? And I didn't know if anybody in history would ever sought God. And I tried to get away from that by going to the country, and I found that being in nature isn't going to do it for you. I finally realized I just had to. I didn't know anything about India or Indian philosophy, and I thought of going to a jungle in Brazil and maybe becoming a hermit there, and if I found anything, I imagined finding maybe peace of mind or something, then I would share that with people. But if not, why impose my ignorance on them? And at this time, God heard my prayer, and He got rid of my parents. He sent my father to Egypt, and the day that I put my mother on the ship to go join Him, if they had been there, I was only 22, their objections would have been powerful enough to make it very hard. But the day I put my mother on the ship, I went uptown New York, I found Autobiography of a Yogi. And I read that book, and I took the next bus from New York to Los Angeles. That's 3,000 miles. And I was so desirous of being accepted by Master. The first words I said to him were, I want to be your disciple. And I was so fervently desiring that, I had no time to have any impressions. I just knew he was my guru, and he accepted me, so that's why I'm here. But I could not have an impression of him because I was too full of my own need to be accepted. I didn't need an impression of him. I knew he was a great man, and I knew he was what I wanted. So anyway, that is my answer. It seems strange because usually when you meet somebody, you get an impression. I was too busy sending my impressions out. You have to, eh? Any other questions?
Swamiji, tell us something about nirvana.
Nirvana, you know, it's an interesting thing. Buddhists are said to be atheists. Buddha was not an atheist. He was an avatar. But before then, during Karma Kand, they did these different rites and rituals to please the gods. And he said, it's not that'll do it. You don't have to please the gods. You have to do something yourself. So his mission was to tell people to do their part. And because of that, his followers tended to think that we're atheists and it's all done by ourselves. It's not true. Every master who comes at a time when, well, let's put it this way. Let's say that the goal of life is to reach the equator. People north of the equator are told to go south. People south are told to go north. When the people from the north start getting south of the equator, people say, no, you're supposed to go north. No, you're supposed to go south. And so you have all the argument that you find in religion. But it's all the same goal. You have to find that center in your own self. And nirvana is a state that you reach before attaining liberation, before attaining nirvikalpa samadhi. You have lost all your impressions and everything. You're an emptiness. Then comes flooding in the bliss of God. So nirvana is a state, my guru explained, that you have to pass through. Excuse me. You have to pass through to get to that. It's a temporary, right?
Is it a state of mind?
Yes. But you don't have a mind.
Thank you.
Swamiji, my question is does each soul have the same time period to merge back into God? Or it depends on
No, you've got days of Brahma. In fact, it says in the Gita, and in the Rubayatapama, which is a great scripture, most people don't understand it. They think it's a love poem, but it's written by somebody who had to protect his religion from people who wouldn't understand it. And he says, many who are thrown out at the beginning of a day of Brahma are still wandering at the end of a day of Brahma. And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, many who are thrown out are, with the beginning of a new day of Brahma, they're thrown out again. And how many times are you thrown out? Why waste all that time? But there's no fixed time. You have this much freedom of will to go toward God or away from Him. And some take less time than others. I asked my guru one time, because somebody had seen him in vision back in Lemuria, which is supposed to have been 80,000 years ago. And he was with Master then. I said to him, Master, have I been your disciple for thousands of years? He said, it's been a long time, that's all I'll say. So it's not a quick thing. He said, desires for this and that take people away again and again. And that's after finding my guru. You may get it quickly. I don't want to discourage you. But the chances, unfortunately, are you get a little pleasure and a little hint of a desire and you go that way. Oh, I want to be a famous pianist. I want to be a famous this or that. And I warn you, it can last a long time. But to find a guru is the greatest blessing in the three worlds. When you have a guru and he gives you his touch, then you're almost there. Almost means maybe a few lives, but still almost. Before that, all these people in the streets that you see, their minds are hooked on sex, on money, on power, on all the things of this world. When you finally really, when you begin to want to go know God, Master said, there is first of all, God sends you little things, books, nice lectures, things like that. When you want Him intensely, then He will send you a guru. You don't have to look for your guru. You pray to God deeply and He will send it. When I met my guru, when I read autobiography, I had never heard the word guru before. I didn't know what it meant. I knew I wanted help, but I didn't know. All the people I had met, I knew, I knew they couldn't help me. But as soon as I read his book, I knew he could help me. This man has what I want. But it's a big job. That's why I say don't waste time. It's so easy to waste time. But you'll find that there's more and more pleasure. I used to love reading books. Now I don't like to very much. I just like to think of God. You'll find more and more pleasure in that. Okay? Any other questions?
Swamiji, does the same Guru helps us all our life till we
Not
merge
necessarily.
into God? Or God can send some other
Not
Guru?
necessarily. It can be, it'll be in the same line. In other words, you may have been Lady Maharaj's disciple, and now you're Yogananda's, that kind of thing. But it won't be a different Guru. You'll be one Yogananda. This is sort of strange. He said that Judas Iscariot, you know, who's betrayed Christ, people think of him as the greatest sinner and villain in history. Master said he was a prophet. I said, is that so? He said, oh yes, he'd have had to be one of the 12. And he said, I met him in this life. That means at the beginning of the 20th century. And Jesus appeared to this master and asked him to free him. And that master was Ramakrishna. And I think his name in this life was Ananda. I think, I'm not sure. He still had, the clue that I have is that Ananda, Master said he still had a little attachment to money. And Ananda was attached to getting money for the wife of Ramakrishna. And so he didn't want it for himself, but he still thought in those terms. And the other disciples made fun of him for it. And the Guru said, don't, leave him alone. He suffered enough. But there are many strange things. So Jesus appeared to Ramakrishna and asked him to free him. But is there a tie between Ramakrishna and Jesus? I myself have to say I think so. There are subtle things I can't talk about too much. Okay, any other questions?
Beloved Swamiji, can you tell us any way to overcome fear?
You know, the best way to overcome fear, I've found, is just to accept the possibility that it's happening to you. And if you can accept that, then you've overcome the fear. I've never been nervous in public because I've always thought, if people think I'm a fool, and it doesn't matter if I am, and if I'm not, it doesn't matter, and so let it go. And so people are usually afraid of death. It'll come anyway, why be afraid? But the truth is, all sorts of books have told about the near-death experience, and after you die, absolutely you don't lose consciousness. You're stuck with this world, and you can't get out that easily. So, no, there's nothing to be afraid of. If somebody comes to you with a knife and kills you, okay, let it be. You'll still be around. I think if you can face fear and accept it, then you've overcome it. Narayani, how much time do we have?
As much as you want.
How much time do I have?
As long as you want. It's the timing is till 6 o'clock, but you can speak as long as you want. You can speak as long as you want.
Okay. Any other questions?
Swami, how can we overcome the worldly desires?
How can you overcome worldly desires?
Of course, many of the lesser desires are overcome by indulging in them. Whenever you enjoy anything, just when you eat food, for example, don't feel I am enjoying it. Feel it's there. When everything that you enjoy with the grace of God, with the joy of God. I met a sadhu in Puri years ago. He was 132 years old, so he must have had something. But he told me, you mustn't enjoy anything. I said, not even a beautiful sunset? No, nothing. Well, to me, that's a very dry attitude. My guru said, enjoy everything, but with the joy of God, which is to say, whatever you enjoy, share it with God. Then you feel free. Do you understand? So all the things of this world, if you can bring God into it, even into sex, even into worldly things, if you share it with God, you'll gradually be able to come free of it. Whereas if you try to think, oh, he didn't see that, did he? Of course he saw it. He did it through you. So the more you give it to him, the more you become free. Okay? Have I beaten you into the ground here? Yes, Suti.
Well, it's not a philosophical question, but I'm curious if you've thought about writing anything with the Upanishads.
No. No. I don't know enough about them. I know the philosophy, but I don't know the specifics. I am not a scholar. You know, when Master was, the Maharaja of Kashim Bazar gave him first the land at Dihika, but it was very malarial and the children were getting malaria. So he asked the Maharaja if he could give him land or a place in a more salubrious climate. And the Maharaja said that, he said, if you want to teach spirituality, I would like to have you tested, because Yogananda was still a young man. I would like to have you tested. So he had a whole room full of pundits in the room, and Yogananda said they were all ready for a theological bullfight. And Yogananda said, there's something, let's not talk about what we've read, let's talk about what we've experienced. There's something all the scriptures say, the four aspects of mind are mon, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta. But the scriptures say also that they have a specific location in the body, and they don't say where that location is. Can you tell me where it is? Well, they didn't know. There was no scripture they could quote. So Master said, this is mon, this is buddhi, ahankar, chitta. And when you perceive things, you perceive them like Dhritarashtra. He was blind, signifying the blind mind. Then the buddhi, first, let's see that you see a mirror. In a mirror you see a reflection of a horse. Then buddhi steps in and says, oh, that's a horse. Mind doesn't know it, it just reflects it. Buddhi says, oh, that's a horse. This is why when you think deeply or try to use your intellect, you tend to frown. Now, what does that mean? Now, if you're proud, if you have ego, that comes from here, and you see people looking down their noses at other people. And this is chitta, this is feeling. The rule of Patanjali, and if you have read my book, Demystifying Patanjali, I go into this at length. The feeling, the chitta does not mean mind stuff or those vague words. It means feeling. When you see that horse and you say, it's my horse, you're still not completely hooked. What hooks you is, oh, how happy I am to see my horse. The chitta is what keeps you bound to Maya. That's why Patanjali defined yoga as yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the neutralization of the vortices. Chitta means vortex, not wave, of feeling. All the feelings, I want my horse, I want my daughter, I want my position in life, I want my home. All these create little vortices And the energy coming up the spine there is caught in little vortices along the spine. We have to get rid of all those vortices of chitta, feeling. And therefore, when you feel, when you go to bed at night, a very good practice would be mentally to create a bonfire. And think of all your desires, all your feelings, all your attachments, and throw it into the fire. So that you go to bed at night, you're completely free. You know, before I had my heart surgery, the surgeon said to me, if you don't have the surgery immediately, you could die very easily in your sleep. And people do die in their sleep. It could happen. Why not be completely free before you go? So before you go to sleep, just give everything back to God. You'll feel freer that way. So dissolve all your all your likes and dislikes. It's very important. As long as you have likes and dislikes, I want that, desires, attachments, these are the things of Maya. Otherwise you can go through Maya and be untouched. Okay? Any questions?
How can we get over our attachment to our children?
You have to remember that they're gods. You know, you could have a child, a son, and you love him dearly, and he dies, and he's reborn next door. You won't even know him, probably. So, whose child is it really? You have children, God gives you that thought that he's mine or she's mine, and that thought is necessary because you have to help him to grow. But you have to accept the thought too, this is God's child. There was a woman who had this problem. She went to Ramakrishna. He said, think of your baby as Balakrishna and just do everything for Balakrishna. And in that way, she was able to worship Krishna even while taking care of the baby. But it doesn't mean you have less love. Mind you, this is an important point. When you see everything as God, then you care for it much more. So you love your child more. When there is attachment, there is less love because it's my child. You don't have that thought of my. You're taking care of it because of its being God's. Everything is God's. Your husband, your wife, your children, everybody is really God's. And we live only temporarily here, and then we have to go. Okay?
Swamiji, how can we deepen our love for God?
I would say that pray for that love. As you pray for it, that love will develop. Chanting is very important. That song, Amon Din Ki Hobe Matara, is a very important song because it helps develop the devotion of the heart. And loving other people and helping other people. The more we soften our hearts, the more we feel love for God. So in this way, we need other people. I think that very few hermits attain God because they should also be helping other people. And if they help other people, they're doing sadhana. Okay? Any other questions?
Swamiji, tell us how easy way how to control our mind.
That's a tough one. But the more you give your mind to God, feel Him thinking through you. And remember, it's not even your thoughts, so just feel Him thinking through you. But it's very difficult. The world makes us restless. I would say one very important thing is, don't watch television. It makes you completely restless. I never watch television, but I was in a barber shop in Rome, Italy, and he had his television set going. I noticed that every 2 seconds the scene changed. How can you have a calm mind when you have that kind of thing? Many people have several TV sets going in their homes, different programs in different rooms. So please, get away from those things that make you restless. I think that television is the greatest instrument of Maya. Okay? Yeah.
How to be content in all situations?
How can we be content in all situations?
Take everything that comes from God, even if it's pain. Just say, God, you're giving me this. When I go to the dentist, I'm content. When people insult me, I remember I was at a large conference in the eastern part of America. I came from California, and there were many people who were on the lecture circuit and famous people because of having been in public so much. And I invited them all to dinner at a restaurant. And because these people were better known, they kept talking to each other, ignoring me. I was the host of the gathering. I thought how wonderful it is to be completely unimportant. It's a nice feeling. If people ignore you, feel happy with it. You don't have to respond to useless questions. Any other questions? Yes.
Swamiji, will you be visiting Master's house while you're here?
I don't know if I'll have the time, but I want to. So, do you know?
I think we're going tomorrow.
We are tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Yes.
Swamiji, like when you read quite a lot of scriptures, do you become dry inside and your devotion just goes off?
When you read a lot of scriptures, do you become dry inside and your devotion goes?
I think you don't need to read. If you read 1 hour, meditate 2 hours. Love God all the time. Scripture is a very unimportant thing. There was one man, unfortunately for me, has my own name, Kriyananda. He took it and he lives in Washington, in Chicago. And he came to Master with this long list of questions, and he thought he was very important for having thought of all these intellectual questions. And he asked the first one, Master's answer was, love God. And he went on to the next one, love God. Third one, love God. And he got up and walked out. And ever since, this man has always said that even saints have their problems. He had the problem. Yeah, any other one?
I have one question. Is there any proof that we have had past lives?
Is there any proof that we have past lives?
Yeah, you. Look at all of you. Each one of you. It's a wonderful thing to watch a crowd of people, and everyone is different. 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. What God can do with all those? Those aren't your DNA. It develops over many lifetimes, your different qualities. You can see them in people. And really it's fun watching people and seeing all the different qualities. But there are also ways you can remember as you become unattached to this body. Patanjali said that the more you are unattached, the more you can remember past lives. So you go to Brigu or Agastya, they tell you your past lives. And I went to one in Barnala in Punjab, and he told me my past life, and it wasn't altogether happy. I was a rich man, lived in Kerala, in Karachi, and I came to the desert of, we went on a pilgrimage, and I came to the desert of Rajasthan, and there I was in the ashram where Kapila had his ashram. I met my guru, underwent a complete change, and sent my wife home. And after 10 years, 12 years, she came and wanted to be with me. And I told her I didn't want anything to do with women, and I sent her away. And that was a pap. It was wrong to do that, because she was a good woman. To renounce a woman who is materialistic or pulls you down, that's right. But to renounce a woman who is good, that was wrong. So he said I would not find liberation until this life. And then I went to another one in Delhi. And I became interested in this whole phenomenon because somebody living 5,000 years ago could know me, my little me in this century. It seemed inconceivable. And he said, I've given him a reading already in my Yoga Valley. And it said that a man has many lives to live. And in the time of the Battle of Kurukshetra, he was the ruler of a small kingdom, and he didn't want to get involved, so he went to the forest and took initiation from a guru, and had reached Shanti in his vrittis, that must mean Savikalpa at least. And then he argued with his guru, and his guru told him to leave. And he said, you have to wander until you meet Yogananda. So there are many things like this too that are very interesting. And I've had a few others, but I can remember some of my past lives too. And it's fun, but it's not the relevant thing. The relevant thing is where are you right now. Be freed of everything. I've been a king many lives, but that's no more important than being a serf, being a farm laborer, anything. You're all just children of God. We play different roles. Yeah.
Swamiji, I have a question. Actually, in the connection of past life, I want to ask you that I heard from you when I met you in Gurgaon that Guruji was Arjuna, and second connection was Guruji William the Conqueror.
Yes. That's to me. You know, I grew up under the English system. I was born in Romania, but of American parents, so I went to an English school. And I had always learned that William was the greatest, one of the great villains of history. Here I found he was my own guru. So I had one of our members research his life for 10 years, and she found he was a great saint. 400 years after he died, his body was found to be incorrupt, still preserved. That only happens to saints. He was very noble. He had to live a very difficult life, but he was an avatar. A saint has to worry about his own humility and so on. An avatar comes to destroy evil and to put virtue back, and sometimes an avatar has a fierce life. Krishna had too. And so I was amazed by this. But Master said that, pardon?
William the Conqueror also?
Yeah, that's who he's talking about.
That's whom I'm talking about. He was a great saint, but it didn't look like it from what the historians say. And I was his son, Henry I. And Master said that Babaji was Krishna. And he said, that's why I'm so close to Babaji in this life. I didn't know he was close, but he is. So, you know, a master like our Guru, he has lived he's been an avatar many incarnations. He says in his poem, God's Boatman, I will return if need be 1 trillion times, as long as one stray brother is weeping by the wayside. And that kind of self-sacrifice is beyond our understanding. Most people, when they get out of it, they figure that's that. A few people have this desireless desire to help other people, and they come back. They're the avatars. So an avatar is a completely free soul that doesn't merge back into God, but postpones that freedom, ultimate freedom, to help other people. Well?
Swami, when I see children, small children suffering, it disturbs me a lot. How can I get over it?
When she sees small children suffering, it disturbs her. How can she get over that?
Well, you have to realize that they've been around a long time. Master one time was given a child to bless. He said later, I nearly dropped it. I saw that in that little baby there was a murderer. So why do they suffer? Because they've done something wrong in the past. And you know, karma, it works. You can't get away from it. But, are you all right? Yeah, that's all right.
Swamiji, you met Master when you were 23 and you connected with him in a particular way. How do you connect with Master today after so many years of discipleship?
When you met Master, you connected with him a certain way. How do you connect with him? How do you relate to him today?
In those days I had to see him. Now I don't have to see him. I feel him in my heart. And whenever I have a question, I ask him and I get the answer. And he's always with me. I don't feel that I'm talking. He's talking through me.
Swamiji, what is the fate of the person who says this, I don't believe in God and all that?
That's always an interesting question. You know, I had a person in Australia ask me that question. He said, I don't believe in God. What do you say about God that will touch me? I said, think of God as the highest level that you yourself can aspire to. He said, well, I can live with that. They speak English in a strange way. And if you think you don't have to believe in God, but you have to know that if you go upward, you are happy. This is the whole story of the Bhagavad Gita. The enemy, the Kauravas, are the lower qualities. The Pandavas are the upward pulling qualities. If you go upward, you feel more and more happy. If you go downward, you feel more and more unhappy. You don't have to believe in God. If you want happiness, you're believing in God. You can't help believing in Him because He is ultimate happiness. So everybody believes in God. They may not believe in the definition of God, but they can't help believing in happiness, and that's because that's God. Bliss, Ananda. Okay, I think that's enough for today, and thank you very much.